Word up, mic check, check. Justin Hunt, It's All Happening. Special guest of the day. Special guest of the day, straight out of Los Angeles. Got the whole hip hop scene turned upside down. People are so excited about her new project, LA Baby. The one and only Dazy Lyn. 9-second applause. Word up. Thank you for coming through. Thank you so much
absolutely.
For coming through. Yeah, man, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. I've seen you at multiple places around the city. I've been seeing your music progress over time, and now you get to celebrate the release of your album, LA Baby.
My baby.
Yes. How do you feel?
I'm excited. This is my first album.
First album.
Yes. So, for me, all of this has been new and I'm navigating as best as I can. It's very DIY for me, like I'm learning as I go. So, yeah.
I mean, DIY if this is DIY for you, you put together
this whole
a hell of a DIY thing.
No, this whole music thing has been very DIY because nobody told me what to do. It was I just started doing it, and God would put people in my life that would help along the way. Like, I don't necessarily have like a team, like a manager or anything like that from the beginning, but I've always said I don't do things alone. It's the people that I've met along the way that have created opportunity, that have introduced me to people, that have helped me in some way. So it's still very DIY though, because I'm just figuring it out as I go.
Well, let's take a look at this, right? Okay. I mean, this is your first album features Mozzy's on your first album.
Yes.
Havoc is on your first album. Coyote is on your first album.
Yes.
It's released through Empire. Mm-hmm. This is a pretty good DIY debut.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. Well, the Empire stuff, that's thanks to David Ali. So, all credit to him, because that really was something that I needed to help solidify the release, right? Mm-hmm. So he helped me with that.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's dope. Day One is engineer to this, am I right?
No, Day One mixed it.
Yeah,
okay. He mixed most of the album. There's one song that the homie JP mixed, but Day One mixed all the other 11 songs. And then Franco, who is my producer, he's the engineer.
Okay.
And he mastered everything too. He's got a great ear.
Word up. 1-second applause to Franco. That's dope. So I want to get into the project. I want to get into the music, but I want to get into your story a little bit first.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So you're from Los Angeles. What part of LA are you from?
Born and raised, Koreatown and South Central.
Word up. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and you seem like you've been an artistic person
my whole life. Yeah. So like my first gift from God was drawing. So that's what I've always done. In fact, when I was a little girl, my family used to say that I was going to work for Disney. They'd be like, "Oh, you're going to work for Disney." But you know what? I have flashbacks of wanting to be an actress, wanting to be a singer, not a rapper. I wanted to be a singer, but I was like, damn, but I can't sing, but I would still be in front of that mirror, just singing and stuff. And even once I was like, I want to be a veterinarian, so since I was little, I showed signs of the type of things that I liked or I was drawn to. That's why I always tell people, pay attention to what your kids like, because they will tell you and show you signs at a young age what they're into, and then you can pour energy into that.
Mm. So your parents were supportive of your artistic endeavors?
Yeah. I mean,
like, did they pour into you?
I remember my mom taking me to art classes when I was younger, maybe like 6-7 years old. I remember she would sign me up for stuff like that, where we would do arts and crafts. That was short-lived. I remember being alone a lot, even though my parents were very present. Like, I think that they were also preoccupied, with their own lives, like their own thoughts. But my dad did spend a lot of time with me. He played a lot of catch with me. Like, we were together a lot, you know, but anything that I was doing artsy, I'd be doing by myself. And then I do remember I'd come and show off my stuff, like, look at my stuff, you know, and they'd just be like, oh, nice. But it wasn't like a big celebration, like, oh my God, this is incredible. Like, let's, you know, like, it wasn't like that.
Okay.
Like the way that I would do it, like me, if I was a parent and I had a kid showing me these crazy drawings and doing stuff, I'd be in tears and putting it in frames and putting it all over the house, you know, but they acknowledged it in their own way. You know, they just say, oh, that's nice. Good for you.
Word up.
And I'd be like, good for me. Like, this is amazing. Like, that's all you have to say, you know, but
I spent all week on this.
Yeah. But, you know, they like, it like, I don't know. My dad, even to this day, if I show him something that I did, he goes, nice, mija. And he just keeps looking at whatever he's watching, or he, you know, like he just continues. And I'm like, okay, like, I'm like, I know this is great, but, you know, maybe he's just not like artsy like that, you know?
Right.
But no, I have very supportive parents, very supportive.
That's cool. Do you have siblings?
No, it's just me out here.
See, there's a track on LA Baby called Voicemail Interlude.
Oh, yes.
Now, that connected with me for two reasons. One, I used to do that back in the day. Okay. Mine was a little different. It would say, hello? Hello? Hello?
Yeah.
My bad. I'm not home.
Yeah.
And then people start, but yours is so slick.
Yeah.
Because you just go, hello, and people think they're talking to you.
Yeah.
And so for people who haven't heard the album yet, there's an interlude where she just says hello, and then various people are calling. One of them sounds like a kid. One sounds like a friend who's got some tea to spill. One of them, it's a bunch of different people. I couldn't tell who was family, who was friends. I thought the little girl might be your niece or something like that.
My goddaughter.
Your goddaughter.
Yes,
One second applause to your goddaughter. But I thought, I mean, it's just so funny. Who are the other people in that interlude?
My comadre, Antonia. She's someone that's been in my life since I was 14 years old. A very good friend. I don't like to use the term best friends, but she's like a sister to me. My grandma, Lit Poppy's on there.
Poppy's on there?
Yeah.
I got to listen to it again.
So Lit Poppy's the one that kicks it off and he ends it as well.
Word up. 1 second applause to Lit Poppy.
Yeah. So like I actually, you know what's funny is I had thought about an interlude, right? Like a voicemail interlude. And I was like, well, let me see what I have. And turns out I've never listened to any of my voicemails. So when I was going through them, I was like, oh my God, I got some shit on here. So I just extracted them and put them all like pieced it together on CapCut and just gave it to Franco. And I was like, put that on there. I think it's funny.
Yeah.
You know, because it just, you know, it shows a little bit of my personality, you know, because I'm very into, like, I have good humor, you know, like good sense of humor. Right. So I'm like, yeah, along with the raps, like, I also like a good laugh. So here, let me add that on there.
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious. I actually,
thank you.
I can't remember the last interlude.
You're the first person to bring that up.
Oh, yes. 1 second applause to me. All right, cool. Yeah, but I can't think of the last interlude that I rewound immediately after to make sure I caught what was going on.
Yeah.
And so I did that when I was listening to the project. It really stood out to me.
I love to hear that because that's exactly what we want, you know. We want you to be invested in like, let me hear that again, you know, like I like that. Thank you.
So did you go to high school in LA too?
Yes, I went to Fairfax High.
Fairfax High. Oh,
yes.
1 second applause to Fairfax. I don't know anything about high schools out here really, but I know, you know, the ones that I lived by. And when I first moved here, I lived in Hollywood. So I knew
Hollywood High and then Fairfax. Yeah.
Those are basically the two.
Yeah.
You know, especially all the events and things that take place on Fairfax.
Yeah, that was actually my first time on the West Side.
Okay.
Yeah. So my mom, she went to Fairfax. Mm-hmm. When she came from El Salvador, she went to Fairfax. I think it was like at 16 years old. Okay. And she always wanted me to go there. So at a young age, I knew that that's where my mom wanted me to go. And I was upset because I wanted to go to Belmont with all my friends. And when I got to Fairfax, I probably knew like 6 people. And, you know, I was worried because I'm like, damn, I've never been on the West Side, you know, like, West Hollywood area, you know, and I was just kind of worried, you know. And when I got there and I saw just that the diversity, I was really pleased.
Oh, word. Okay. So high school was good for you.
Oh my God, what? I loved high school.
Yeah.
Like I always say, I won prom queen for Fairfax, you know? So to me, that's like a great achievement. Because one, I showed up not knowing anyone, and two, it's Fairfax.
Right.
Like if you know anything about Fairfax, it's like very like fashion forward. It's just a different vibe, you know? So for me to be able to say that I got that, like it's very cool for me.
What year were you when you got it?
07.
07?
Mm-hmm.
When you were a singer, I guess. Singer,
yeah.
That's crazy. 1 second applause.
Yeah.
I mean, you're extremely fashion forward. I
Thank
think
you.
you've worked in fashion in various ways, it seems like,
Thank
at this
you.
point in time. When do you think you cultivated that love for art and design?
Well, I was born materialistic, you know, like it's kind of crazy when, you know, you come from very humble backgrounds and you're born materialistic, because I'm like, damn, I wish I had Jordans. I wish I had my first pair of Jordans was like a few years ago. You know, I remember being in middle school and I would see all the fly girls with their J's and I'll just stare at them like, damn, I want those. And I got Skechers on or Chucks or, you know, whatever we could afford at the time. But I always wanted to look a certain way. So what I do remember is doing a lot of DIY stuff, like cutting stuff up, turning it into different things, just working with what I had and doing my best to make it look good. When I look at my pictures now, I'm like, damn, I didn't have no swag, you know, but also I didn't have like much to make out of it. You know, I would shop at these like small boutiques a lot, you know, just like those girly boutiques that you see on corners of streets or swap meets. Like that's where I would shop a lot. Or like on occasion, I'd look through my mom's closet, see what I could put together, you know, but I was always really interested in fashion and just doing my hair. Like I love beauty stuff. So yeah, I've always been very interested in that. I just didn't have like money, you know, to buy stuff that I liked. So, you know, even now, like, if I have a performance or something like that, like, you know, I go and I shop for what I want to look like, you know, and a lot of the times I'm on a budget, you know, I can't spend that much because I'm also not somebody that's gonna go broke trying to look a certain way, you know?
I mean, I think that's good advice for everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like budgets, no matter how much money you're making, budgets are important. I worked in investment banking in the beginning of my career, and that's where my career started.
Oh, wow.
I remember when the Great Recession was happening in 2008, basically started 2007, 8, and 9 is when it really hit. But I remember seeing so many of these bankers who were just like talking about how broke they were. And I'm like, y'all are making like $1 million a year. What's happening? That was really my first understanding of debt to equity ratio. You are only as financially sound as your debt to equity ratio. You might make $1 million a year, but if you're spending $4 million a year, you got a problem.
And see, the thing is, I feel like although it pissed me off not having money when I was growing up, I think that it helps me now because I'm so selective and I'm also like a minimalist, you know, like I remember my dad would take me to Ross a lot. Like I have divorced parents, right? But like on the weekends when I would go with him, we'd probably go to Ross, and my dad was always like, you can take one thing. And I'd be like, just one? You know, and I'd be like, oh my God, like there's so much to choose from here, you know? And I would pick all the ones that I liked and I would go and try them on. And if I wasn't in love with them, I'd put it away. And if I was in love with 3 to 4 pieces, I'd literally have to sit there and be like, what can I mix and match with?
Right.
You know, so I was already training myself from a young age to kind of think in that way. So even to this day, I don't buy things that I'm not obsessed with. You know, I'm like, nah, I'm probably not going to wear that, you know. So I've been doing that. That's nothing that's, you know, unheard of in my life.
Yeah, it's a necessity as an artist.
Yeah, you know, and like also, I just don't see a reason in spending so much. Like I don't like I like to spend on my food. You know, obviously there's rent to pay. You know, I have my business too, my hair business. You know, so things like that are priority, you know, things that go towards my music, towards the car, like things like that.
Investing in yourself. There's a book I read in college called Bobos in Paradise by a guy named David Brooks. He's a New York Times columnist. He's a conservative columnist. But this book was called Bobos in Paradise, and it was about how millennials and it's about how the millennial generation was more interested in spending on experience than they were in stuff. Like as a generation, we tend to not buy as many big expensive paintings for the house or some crazy couch, you know, but we will spend more on things that we feel enrich our character and our lives. We'll spend on a festival, for example, a trip, you know what I mean? We'll do that kind of stuff. Yeah. I'm like that too. I'm not super materialistic, though. I do have things that I do like, like when it comes to certain types of shoes, like, you know.
You know what's funny is as like instead of doing experiences, personally, I'll spend it on shoes or clothes. Yeah, I definitely will.
Word up.
Like cause I don't know, like I feel like I've always been here, so it's just like it's whatever, you know. But the times that I have traveled, I've loved it, you know, and I look forward to traveling again at some point, you know. But I definitely will prioritize some shoes and some fits.
Shout out to shoes and fits. Let's take an applause. So, what'd you do after high school?
Oh man, what didn't I do? I've had so many jobs. I want to let you know I've been working since I was 15 years old. I got a work permit 10 days before my 16th birthday. I got that from my high school, and I've just worked nonstop. I started at Denny's as a waitress. I've worked at multiple Denny's as a waitress and a hostess. I've sold yogurt. I've worked on Melrose on 2 different occasions, one in a clothing store and another one at Louise's, which actually is kind of crazy because where Marathon Burger is at, that's where Johnny Rockets and Louise's used to be, right? And I worked literally at that corner as a hostess. I used to have my own podium. So I would stand there literally right where that area is. I had my own podium.
Is that Gardner?
I don't remember the cross street.
The CVS used to be across the street.
Exactly. So, you know, and even back then, I don't think that was CVS. It was something else. But I'm so accustomed to the street life. Like I've been outside for a really long time, so I know what's out there. And like I was known for having a little knife on me because people would fuck with me all the time.
How so?
Just bothering me, like crackheads and like, you know, homeless people. You know, they're just very aggressive sometimes, you know. And like I was like, I'm not about to be out here just like without any protection, you know. So like people that would work with me, they knew that I always had something on me, you know. And I was holding it down outside, you know. I've worked at tattoo shops on Hollywood. I've worked, man, I've just had so many jobs. But after high school, I did go to college. I actually went to PCC, Pasadena City College, because I wanted to get out of LA, because I've always been in LA since kindergarten. And it wasn't that I wasn't a good student. Like I had pretty good grades, but since kindergarten, the complaint that I've always had was talks too much.
Works out for you now.
Yeah, I've been networking since kindergarten, you know.
Let's take an applause.
I've been saying that for the longest, you know, because like literally I wouldn't stop talking. Like no matter where the teacher would move me, I would make new friends, you know, and I would always tell them, like, why do you keep moving me? I'm just going to keep talking, you know, and
I'm the problem.
High school, actually, we got to a point where I had to sit in the corner and facing the corner. Like they moved my desk facing the corner.
In high school?
Yes.
That seems a little bit late in life to be sitting and looking at the wall.
I mean,
that's time out. It's basically time out.
It got that bad. Like so I was, funny. Like,
and you were still homecoming queen.
Yeah. Prom queen.
Prom queen.
Yeah. Homecoming, I was not. But, you know, I've just always been like kind of a class clown, just a talker, very friendly. I'm a little more introverted now, but back then, I was very social, very talkative, very loud, very like, I'm here, all eyes on me, you know, like just obnoxious at times, I'd say, you know, so. I
mean, there's an interesting moment on Boom Bap where you said pain wasn't the only grief, anxiety married me. Mm-hmm. Is that connected to you going from being outgoing to more introverted now?
Yes, absolutely.
What's prompted that transition? What anxiety or what pain
I think that there's a lot of experiences, right, that mold us into the characters that we develop, right? And I think that when I became sober, I experienced relationships in a different way. And I was like, wait, like maybe these people aren't my friends, you know, because I realized that when I became sober, I lost a lot of friendships. Like when I used to throw parties when I was younger, man, I would pack a house out, you know, and I would get a lot of support and people would always show up. And then I realized that when I had become sober and I was trying to maybe do something, it was crickets. No one was showing up. I felt really lonely and I became very guarded, very protective of myself. So that's where the shift came. And I started actually being very introverted. And what I learned from sobriety is that I wasn't actually that loud person that I was portraying to be. That was the liquor in me. That was the demons that were taking over my body and acting out for me, you know? So I learned that pretty quickly. So, you know, just the times that I feel like I've been done wrong, the times that I've put trust in people and, you know, like they ended up hurting me or things like that. That's where a lot of the anxiety developed, and just the feeling of being lonely echoed a lot louder, you know, because again, I'm an only child. So like I said, I feel like I spent a lot of time on my own. Even though I had present parents, I always felt alone,
right?
You know, so it just kind of like, it echoed a lot louder. You are alone, you are alone. And that's, I think, where a lot of the anxiety comes from. You know, I became an overthinker, you know, constantly feeling like I'm left out, or people don't want me around, or, you know, like there's just a lot of thoughts that kind of take over.
I'm an only child too.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I think Zoe's an only child too.
That's rare.
We all had the same address at some point in time.
Damn,
look at that.
Crazy.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
How long have you been sober?
This time around 6 years.
Okay. 6 years.
Yeah.
1 second applause.
Thank you.
That's dope.
Yeah. So it's been 6 years. The first time I was sober was 3.5 years.
Okay.
And then I had a relapse.
Sure.
But this time it's for life.
Yeah. Yeah. I went sober 2 years ago.
Oh,
you know?
shit.
And, I got tired of hangovers. 1, 2, I had way too much pleasure, not enough joy, I would say. And I wasn't hitting the level of efficiency that, you know, I used to. And things just felt dark and alone in a lot of ways too, you know.
That's accountability for you. A lot of people can't see themselves in that way or admit things like that, you know. Like, I think that you need to have a certain depth to you in order to be able to recognize those flaws.
Yeah, I mean, you know, life is, I don't want to say life's the same for everybody, but I think we all have similar opportunities when it comes to self-improvement. And it comes with being honest with yourself, I think.
Absolutely. Self-reflection.
Yeah.
You know, asking yourself those tough questions and answering them honestly, right? Because we are the only ones that know our truth. And that's what I started doing. You know, I was like, where's all this negativity stemming from? You know, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm completely healed from whatever the fuck happened, you know, but I do know that on a daily basis, I'm constantly in dialogue with myself and with God on how I can improve, how I can be better tomorrow, how I can stop overthinking, stop having such negative feelings, you know, and just move forward.
What do you think it was that made you relapse?
The first time? Oh man, it's just the feeling of being left out, you know, because that time when I first became sober the first time, it was because my best friend at the time had gotten shot in front of me and he almost died. And he was in my arms and I was praying to God and I said, if you let him live, I'll never touch it again. And at the moment we were all fucked up, right? Like we were drunk, and I made that promise, and he didn't die. You know, he ended up being paralyzed, but I upheld my end of the bargain, right? Yeah. So I was like, okay, let me do it right. Let me stick to this. So the first time I went sober, it wasn't because I was trying to better my life. It was just a promise that I had made. And ironically, that this happened on a Saturday night. I had to start beauty school that Monday.
Oh, wow.
So I went to cosmetology school that Monday. No one had known. None of my classmates knew what I had just been through during the last 48 hours, you know, and I showed up and I said, okay, this is the beginning of a new life, you know, and I was sober, and it was very weird for me because all of a sudden I didn't feel that spark anymore. Yeah. I remember I used to show up to parties and it was like I was the life of the party. And there was just so much energy and laughs, and man, you build relationships so quickly. You can meet someone and that night you guys are best friends, right. And then you guys are hanging out all the time, you know, you're just so social. And then it went from that to I have nothing to talk about with anyone anymore. Yeah. I show up and I'm kind of quiet. I'm not really dancing because it was the liquor that was getting me to dance, right? So I was just kind of like not knowing what to do. I experienced a lot of jealousy with people that would show up and like they were now the stars of the show, you know, and I was just like, well, if you only knew who I've been, you know, these last 10 plus years, like I'm that person, you know, I'm the one that everyone loves. And, you know, it was a hard time for me because it was like really quiet. I noticed a lot of distance from a lot of people. And I just know that I had told God, if I met a man that I felt was good for me, that was finally healthy and not, you know, this toxic relationship, I was like, I'm going to go ahead and have some wine with him so we can, you know, have some fun. Okay. Right? Like that's what my thought process was like. And at the time, 3.5 years later, I did meet someone who was a good man, you know, and I ended up having wine. And within that first week of having wine, I was right back in it every single day. I was drinking, and I mean every single day, you know, and I was back where I had started, you know. So it was something that was just really familiar to me. The dependency that I had on liquor, it was really a relationship, you know. There's nothing that I loved more, like the way that I would laugh when I was drunk or just have fun or experience life. Like I have yet to like still feel that same intensity, right. You know, and I've made peace with that, you know, because there are moments where I laugh, you know, I have a good laugh, okay. You know, but it's not the way that it was before. Right. You know, because that shit is so intense. It like is. I loved it. You know, I have an addictive personality. So, you know, when I stopped drinking, I picked up weed, right? Like I replace things all the time. You know, I have an addiction to food as well. And at some point love, but little by little, I keep removing this relationship of codependency.
Yeah. I mean, I had a similar experience too. Actually, TF was here for a conversation around the Green Bottle release with Crisis.
Oh, okay.
And I was telling him how, because I have an addictive personality too. And so when I quit drinking, I was scared to go outside, like legitimately scared to go outside because of all the things that you described. Conversations happen so easy. I love an adventure. It is so easy for Justin, the good time guy, to come out and it's 5 a.m, then lost the whole day. You know, some great memories, but also some not so great memories too. But so I ended up picking up chess as a hobby. And so I became addicted to chess. Like it was a lot.
He plays chess.
He did the same thing.
Very well.
He said that was part of his process too. Yeah. He said that when he was quitting drinking and when he went sober, he found himself playing chess like all day, and I did the same thing. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's interesting to hear people's stories of how they're able to evolve when it comes to, you know, how they treat themselves ultimately.
Yeah. No, I mean, I really loved it, you know, and it was so much fun, you know. So going back into that, it was my safe place almost, and it was so familiar. But you know what? I'm so glad that I came into this journey, this music journey. I'm so glad that I came in it sober, because even though it took a long time to build the relationships that I have now, they're so much more meaningful. You know, because like I said in the beginning, you have a drink with someone, you're immediately tapped in, you know. But now when you come in and they're like, oh, you want a shot? Everyone's taking shots. And and I'm the one that's like, no, I'm good. And they're like, oh, okay, you know, and we're not on the same like frequency or whatever. It's like you start to feel excluded. Not only that, but everything takes longer. Like conversations, it takes longer to develop. And I had to be okay with that. Yeah. I had to be okay with not being in the group immediately. I had to be okay with that. Right. And that was like another thing that I had to overcome. And it's fine with me now, because now when I walk in, I feel like family. Now I'm like, oh, these are my folks, and it's okay if I'm not talking all the time. Like I'm in sessions a lot of the time, shutting the fuck up in a corner, minding my business, and I don't feel no type of way. I don't feel weird. I don't feel like I'm not participating. I'm good. Like I'm chilling, and people know that I'm here for them if they need me, but I'm in my own little world, you know, and I feel safe. Because I've developed these relationships, you know. So
and you got more comfortable.
I have. Yeah. I have. And it's taken a long time, you know, but I'm okay with that.
That's dope. 1 second applause. So what made you pick up the microphone?
Maybe it was just curiosity, you know.
You didn't have someone telling you your voice is awesome, they love your poetry.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I did. I definitely had some people in my ear, you know, that were hyping me up. And I was like, well, maybe I can do this, you know, and I did. And it's funny because the first time that I ever got in a booth, I was at a music studio. So ironically, one of my hair studios years ago was in a music building, but I wasn't aware it was a music building. I was just renting out a studio, you know, and through the nights that I would walk the hallways drunk, I met people, you know, it would be 2, 3 in the morning. I'd be like, what are you doing? Like, why are you up? You know, and they'd be like, oh, well, you know, I have a music session. Oh, can I come in? You know, sure. So I'd sit there and hang, and I never said anything. I would just show up drunk, right? And after a few months, like, I was like, let me at it, you know? And I went inside the booth and I dropped the verse that I had written a long time ago, you know? And when I walked out, everyone was like, what the fuck was that? And I was like, oh, it's just something, you know, it's a little something that I do. And they were like, no, that's not a little something. Like, what the hell? And a lot of people encouraged me, you know, in that space to pursue it. And for a long time, I was like, no, it's just a hobby. It's just a hobby, you know. And then at some point I said, well, why not? it's not that big of a deal. Like the way that I see life, you can do whatever you want. Literally, like nobody can control what you're doing. So if I decide I want to do something that day, I can do it. And like I said, to me, it's very DIY, just like I've been doing my whole life with clothes, with whatever the fuck. Like I make something out of nothing all the time because I've had to. Yeah. So that's what it felt like for me. It was like, well, how hard could it be? You find a beat that you like that makes you do this, and then you write to it. It's no big deal.
I will say this, though. I feel like you've grown quite a bit. You know what I mean? I saw you. I mean, I don't know how many years ago we met, but
I've been doing this 3.5 years.
Yeah, 3. Yeah. So I remember one conversation. Might have been, I don't even know when it was, but you were telling me that you were going to start putting out music.
Yes.
And you're at Baron Davis's studio all the time. Yeah. You got Doe Networks around you. You've got Flea Lord. You've got Mozzy and Havoc on this project. But you've been in a lot of rap spaces with real MCs for a long time. Yeah. We were at the Happiness of Pursuit Festival.
Oh, yeah.
And I was hosting that, and you were on stage. And your voice is great. Your confidence was there. The rhymes were personal and they connected well. But since then, you know what I mean? Like you've really found your voice, but you've also found the technique and the skill that I think is something that real hip hop fans appreciate.
Thank you.
Like how's that journey been? And that can't necessarily be as easy as you make it seem. You're like, yeah, I put my mind to it and everything is awesome. But there has been an incredible good progression in the quality of your work.
Well, thank you so much. Well, I mean, I've been rapping since I was a little girl, if I'm being honest, right? Because I've been memorizing lyrics to a lot of these people that you have on your wall, right? Growing up. So unknowingly, I've been studying cadences, pockets, right? And I've known a lot of these songs word for word, So it's like I've been practicing. It was just not my lyrics. And then when I was in my early 20s, I was like, let me just take a stab at it, right? And I would pull up YouTube beats and write out verses, memorize them. And when I was drunk, I'd perform them to whoever would listen. Like literally, if someone was taking me home, I'd be like, you want to hear something? And I'd put a beat, on the phone and just start rapping, right? Yeah. So I've been developing behind closed doors for a long time. Like it didn't just happen, like I have recordings of myself sounding like complete trash. My voice went through so many different stages, right? So now I feel like I finally found the voice, because even when I came out with my first song, that's still not the voice that I have right now, so I acknowledge that there's going to be progression, and I let the past be the past. I'm not too stuck on that. To me, it's like, it's okay. I'm going to keep elevating. And even I'm sure years from now, I'm going to look back at what I'm doing now and be like, oh, like I was, like I could have still been better, but I'm okay with that. I'm really okay with people watching me go through this process.
1 second applause. I want to read what Sway's Universe said about you. Okay. Said about LA Baby. This is in their post about this project. At its core, the LA Baby leans into hardcore boom bap energy, offering listeners a dose of hip hop nostalgia while still carving out something unique for today's West Coast landscape. It's the kind of project that reminds people why femcs like Dazy Lyn are necessary voices in hip hop. She pushes boundaries while keeping the art form's foundation intact.
Shout out Chrissy B.
One second applause, Chrissy B. I mean, I think that's a great description. I mean, it's very boom bap oriented. It's also very personal, at times. And I feel like that's not necessarily something we hear as often as we used to. I don't know if we get a lot of boom bap personal albums as often as we used to. Is that fair to say to you, or do you feel like?
I agree.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of it is like braggadocious rap, which is fun, right? Like that's the one that keeps me putting the gas when I'm driving, and I'm like, ooh, and I'm, and I'm I'm dipping. But there's also certain songs that pull on your heart, like your heartstrings, right? And those are the ones that I love the most, because it helps you process certain things. It helps you relate. It's like you feel seen. I don't know. There's just certain songs that bring me this nostalgia, and I wanted to do the same, because I'm like, there's no way that God gave me all this pain to just rap about chains that I don't have, and, pussy and whatever else is popular. I rather talk about the hard hitting stuff, the stuff that keeps me up at night. Things that maybe I don't usually say, I find a way to release into the songs, so I do love what she wrote there, because I think it's pretty spot on. And I do want to be, I want to be known as a real artist, not just somebody that just talks just to talk.
Yeah. I mean, you said, I'm trapped in the 90s, poetry inspires me. What was it about the 90s that has you still stuck there?
Well, I'm a 90s baby, so that to me is like my core memories. Me and my dad riding around in the car. My dad was always listening to rap, Power 106 specifically, in LA. And we were always listening to rap. So to me, that's what runs through my veins. Like it's
Who are you listening to?
Everybody. I mean, Ice Cube, Snoop, Corrupt, Nas, Biggie, Tupac, everyone.
Pitchfork just put out 100 best rap albums list.
Okay.
And they had Doggy Style at number 100.
Okay.
What's your reaction to that? 100.
I mean, I'd like to know what was before it,
Well, it's actually I want to talk to you about this, because they had Doggy Style at number 100.
Okay.
Right. They had The Chronic at number 62.
Okay.
But they had Mobb Deep, the infamous, number 1. And I feel like that really captures the Dazy Lyn ear. You have infamous love on your project here with Havoc.
I mean, rap was born in the East Coast, right? So I'm sure they're gonna pay homage to them first, and
Well, Pitchfork is from Chicago. They're not even from the East Coast.
Okay. See, I mean, okay, here's the thing. Growing up, I didn't know anything about anybody. I just knew what they sounded like. I never knew what they looked like because I didn't have cable. So if I ever saw them, it would be in magazines when I would go to the store, right? And if I would look through them, or when I got older and I started going to my grandma's house in the valley, they had cable. My cousins, they had cable. So I would see them, but I never knew where these people were from. I never knew what they looked like. I didn't know intimate details about their life. So it wasn't until I started getting older that I was like, oh, like they're from here, or they're, like this is what they look like. Like I never knew what Havoc looked like. Not till, a few years ago where the internet was more available to us, So I was strictly about the music. I don't even know albums or name of songs. Like I just know the songs. Like a lot of times people be, oh, have you heard this? I mean, I don't know, play it. And they might play it and I'll know it word for word. And I had no idea who was singing it or, but that's really how I was raised. Like in the 90s, we didn't have access to a lot of that stuff, so whatever was on the radio, that's what I was listening to.
Another song that you have in this project that I think the video is actually really endearing is Babyface.
I love Babyface.
Babyface. You got an op, I won't fuck him. Find friends, he won't touch him. He buy me roses by the dozen. Look at him turning something. Look at us turning something out of nothing. Was that inspired by a true story?
It's not actually. What's funny about that is I was going through a heartbreak. Like I've gone through several throughout my life. So I know what that feels like very well. It's very rare that I know what love feels like a successful love story. So at the time I was going through something that was pretty dark, something that, you know, discouraged me. And I had made a song. I think I had made Trippin' with Python. And there's other songs even on the album, W's, for example, that I'm speaking on heartbreak, you know. And then came a time where I was more accepting, right? So time had passed and I was like, all right, fuck it, it is what it is. And I was in the studio and I was like, I was thinking about what I wanted. And I was like, well, let me just write about what it would feel like, what I imagine it would feel like. So it's not that I've ever had that. I'm imagining what I would want.
Interesting.
Like if I had love, what would it look like? What does it feel like? You know, so that's what I was writing about. It's not that I've experienced it myself. It was more like a daydream of what I would want.
You know, thoughts are physical. I tell my audience that all the time. You know, one of my favorite quotes from the great Mark Batson is, everything built once has been built twice. First, the thought in your mind brings the structure to life.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And so,
I mean, thoughts are very powerful.
It's hard to get what you want if you don't know what you want.
I mean, that's honestly why, personally, I don't like rap about dying or things like that, because I think that you can call those things into your life. You know, I'm really big on manifestation, so I'm very cautious with things that I say. And when I do rap, and I'm like saying certain things, a lot of the times I'm calling it into my life. Like if I'm rapping about rich shit, I'm calling it into my life, you know, because that's what I expect. You know, I feel like I'm deserving of a good life like that. I'm deserving to be spoiled and to have certain experiences. So I call that into my life.
Just like you were when you were a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's up. I mean, it's like that line you have on Plate. Oh, by the way, if you owe me money.
This is a reminder that you still owe me money, motherfucker.
1 second applause. That joke, I thought that was dope, man. I mean, that was just one of those moments of personality. There's a lot of moments of personality that I think come through on this project.
Thank you so much.
That was a great one.
Thank you.
I want to talk about Infamous Love with featuring Havoc, by the way. Yeah, you know,
shout out Havoc.
I think the hook is really dope on here. I'm looking for an infamous kind of love. You got a thing for me. I got a thing for love. You got a mob for us. You know, how did this collaboration come about?
Well, actually, when I first started rapping, I had one song and it caught Sway's attention, right? So there were a lot of eyes on me when I went to New York and I met Sway and I did Overtime. There was a lot of new eyes, and I started putting out like freestyles where I would pick a beat and I would rap over it, right? And there was a beat that I chose. I don't even remember what beat it was, but it got Havoc's attention, and you know, he sent me a DM with a bunch of flames to that clip, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, I've been listening to Mobb Deep for such a long time. I've been a big fan, and when he was there, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Like, he thinks I'm dope. Like, I knew I was dope. Like, you know, thank God this is confirmation for me. So, you know, I always kind of kept communication there, even though it wasn't like really big, right? We're not talking about deep things, but there was just little things where I kept communication throughout the years. And when I was working on this album, you know, I told Franco, I said, hey, Franco, I was like, I kind of know Havoc, you know, and he was like, really? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, I think if I ask him, I think he might be down because I think he fucks with me. And he was like, really? And I said, yeah, let me try it. So I reached out to him and in a DM, and I was like, hey, like, it would make my whole life if you could be on my first album, you know, like, what do you think? And he was like, are you signed to anyone? And I was like, no, I'm completely independent. And he was like, all right. He was like, just send it to me. I got you. And I was like, like, I can't believe it. He said yes, you know? So Havoc was my first yes, but Mozzy was my first verse.
Well, before we get there, I want to play a piece of this this track here for people, so people got to hear it. It's one of the best songs on the project to me.
Oh my God,
personally.
Okay.
Where is this at? Where is Go To album? And I think your voices complement each other just really great.
Thank you.
At the same time. Dazy Lyn. Havoc. It's so funny. I downloaded this project and it's everywhere but my iPad.
I memorize all my favorite parts of you.
Here we go. This is this.
You just kind of stuck on my mind right now.
I ain't a preacher, I just talk a lot. Brain calling all the shots, heart gave no response. Fighting wars in a melting pot. Don't know if I'm wrong or not. Had to take a step back from what was harming us. I'm in a rush about mine, it's better if I drive. I'm at the top of cloud nine, wonder who I find. I had to stop pretending like you're not on my mind. Like I wasn't just with you on the last night. Like I didn't love you in a past life.
Franco killed this right here.
When your eyes try, I look around for more signs. I try to confirm when something ain't right. How many times did your faith die? Please don't lie. You restore what I lost when I hear you rhyme. Pull the alarm, now the heart in me is weaponized. Let it wreak havoc on the ass, I feel alive. I'm looking for an infamous kind of love. I got the kind of dreams, you got the kind of plugs. You gotta think for me, I gotta think for thugs. Born a prodigy, you down in my
Dazy Lyn.
infamous love, nothing else to compare it to. You down in my us.
Dazy Lyn.
Proceed to the realest shit I ever knew. You down in my us. I knew you was one of them ones, not a regular love. Everything about you had me leveling up. Who the hell better than us? When our minds combine, we find ourselves in a better trust. Cannot lie, say it was never love.
This part of the beat right here.
Touched by the words, let me drive, I'm in a rush. That shit kinda fucked me up. I was in a hurry to know, did the stars line up for us?
Yo, Dazy Lyn, we're gonna give that
Thank you.
7.9 second applause right now. That's hard, yo. This is one of my favorite joints on. It's one of my favorite joints I heard this year. I love the production. I think Franco did a great job on there. I think you and Havoc's voices work well together. It's really dope.
Yeah, no. What's interesting is, you know, there are times where I have issues with choruses, creating melodies, thinking outside of the rapper mindset, right? And I reached out to Louis King. I don't know. Do you know Louis King?
I know he is. I don't know him personally.
Yeah, so I reached out to him and I was like, hey, like I know you kind of have a thing for choruses, like you kind of have a way, like, do you think you could help me with this? Because I want to send this to Havoc. And, you know, he pulled up on me and helped me put that together. So I was really excited, you know, when I, cause like, I think I had like the melody and he was like kind of filling in some pieces for me and using like Mobb Deep references. And I was like, oh, fire. Yeah. Like I fuck with that, you know? So
1 second applause to Louis King.
Yeah. So, you know, I laid it down and when I got that chorus, I was finally ready to send it to Havoc, you know, and when I sent it to him, you know, he just had nothing but nice things to say. You know, he was complimenting the song and he was like, I can really feel your passion in this. He was like, yeah, I'm with it. I'll send you my verse.
That's dope.
Yeah.
That's dope. 1 second applause, Infamous Love. I want to talk about this Mozzy track too this time. Now, this song with Mozzy is one of my favorite rappers, period, of all time. Like for a very long time, Mozzy was my avatar, my favorite form, boxed in. It was a picture of Mozzy. And he used to be with Empire for a long time, straight out of Sacramento. And I just think he's just one of the most powerful voices in hip hop in a long time. Like he captures pain in a way that is so unique. It's like him and Scarface to me are like the best at capturing pain. I love Mozzy's work, and I'm gonna play his verse. So I'll play a piece of your verse too. But you have this line in here that I die laughing every time I hear it. I don't know if it's supposed to be funny, but it's funny to me. You're like, don't be sorry, ho. Be careful when you meet angels. Yes, because I love Friday After Next.
Don't be sorry, ho. Be careful.
And it's like a serious moment, but it's funny as fuck. One second applause. Oh my gosh, we'll play a piece of that real quick. Okay, for sure. That shit had me dying when I heard that.
I love that you're pointing out a lot of things that it's my first time hearing someone point them out.
Oh man, this is really great stuff.
I love this.
Yeah, let's check out Mozzy real quick. There we go.
This time. Right there.
You see what I mean? I shouldn't be up here laughing.
Yeah. Ain't even know they raised me. Feel like I'm the baby Brenda head. This shit is crazy. Put on for the trenches round the globe and they should thank me. The struggle we endured as adolescents didn't break me. That's what made me. My style of living janky, I can't help it. What's selling grams for Instagram is this a bit rebellious. Look up to the Huey B. Newtons and Mandelas. Told him take that chop off his page, just try to help him out the mud. I put on all my thugs, I'm selfish. Niggas never lent their helping hand when I was helpless. I remember this method's even fucking up my liver. It's ironic how my family was on dope, now I'm a sipper. Do you only talk to God when you need a favor? Call your mama's crib up when you need some paper. Stranger to the cold, I see you like to flirt with danger. Don't be sorry, hope be careful when you meeting angels. Got you holding back rivers from your eyes.
I love that part. That second applause.
Don't be sorry, ho. Be careful when you meet angels.
Oh God, that song is great too. Excuse me.
See, that's what I was talking about. You know, when you meet people that make you feel bad. You know, when you're expecting to be treated a certain way and they end up not valuing you as a person, and you're just like, bitch, how dare you? Right. You know, like I'm God's child and you out here fucking with me.
Right. Yeah. 1 second applause. How'd you and Mozzy link?
Well,
was that through an Empire connection there?
No, okay. It was, I had just finished in the studio. So David Ali, who I told you put it through Empire, he's also the source of where I was recording at. So he allowed me to record in his studio space. And when I was leaving the studio one day, normally I leave 6 p.m. every day. I'm out of there. I'm not someone that's like late in the studio type of shit, you know. So I would leave, and that day he asked me to stay behind to show him my music. And thank God that I did, because I was maybe 15 minutes into playing, you know, some of the stuff that I had for the album. And Mozzy walked in with like 15 fucking people. And mind you, my music was playing really loud, you know, and it was my first time meeting him. And when he heard it, he was like, is that you? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh, we're going to work. And, you know, people say that all the time. So I was just like, sure, you know, like, I mean, I immediately was like, of course I want to work with you, you know, but I just didn't think he meant at that moment, you know. And within 10 minutes, he's like, so what's up? Like, what do you got for me? Like, what open verse do you have? And
so you had this for the project already?
No, I didn't. But it's kind of crazy to me because I had been listening to this beat. Like Franco, when I first met Franco, he had sent me a bunch of beats, right? And I was onto something new, and I was like going through them again. I was like, let me check to see if I missed something. And that one caught my attention. And I was playing it a lot, but I wasn't getting any downloads yet. I wasn't getting lyrics, but I knew that I loved the beat. And when Mozzy asked me if I had an open verse for him, I had to be honest and say, you know what? Like, I don't. Like, the open verses that I have, one is for the Yotis. The other one is for Havoc. The other one was for Merkham's. Like, I already knew, and I didn't have anything that was already started. So I was like, but I do have this beat. And as soon as he heard it, he was like, yeah, load it up. That's hard. And it matched so perfectly. It was meant for us, you know, because again, I agree with you that he can deliver pain, right? And I felt it. And at the moment in my life, I was feeling a lot of pain. So it helped me release what I was going through as well. So throughout this whole verse, like this particular song makes me cry a lot. Like when I'm in my car and I'm driving, I have tears coming down my face because I just remember what was happening, what I was feeling. And like, even like the chorus to me, you know, it strikes a chord, you know? So that song right there is very special to me because it was also the first verse I had received. Even though Havoc had already said yes, I hadn't had his verse yet. So in my mind, I'm like, am I really gonna get it? Is it really mine? Yeah. You know, or is he not gonna respond one day? Or, you know, like I'm obviously, like I told you, I'm an overthinker, you know, so I'm thinking about there's a possibility that I could not have it, you know? So when Mozzy gave me my first verse, it was that little push that I needed to keep going, you know, to not feel discouraged and just to feel confident about where I was going with this album. Yeah.
1 second applause to Mozzy and the universe.
Yes.
What pain were you going through?
Mine always stems from love or a lack of love, right? So I think that my entire life, like that's been the hardest addiction that I've ever gone through. I think that a lot of it was inherited from my bloodline, you know, because I think that if I look through the people that have raised me and the people that I've been around, it looks like a pattern. You know, so my entire life, I've always daydreamed about love and what that would look like. And even when I was little, I couldn't wait to be a grown-up so that I could find this soulmate that I've always been thinking of. But I never found them. And, you know, to this day, I don't know what that feels like. So it's been a long process of detaching myself from that. And for the first time this year, I feel like I finally made a breakthrough.
1 second applause.
Yeah.
That's dope. I mean, it's interesting the way you describe that, some of this coming through your bloodline. You know, there's this, I think it's called Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. It was a movie I watched when I was a kid. I love Bruce Lee. Got the Bruce Lees on right now, representing.
Oh, shit, okay.
But Bruce Lee, I guess his father would have nightmares about some shogun coming to kill him or whatever. And so Bruce Lee had those nightmares too his entire life, and he wasn't able to make the progress he needed to make or get past certain barriers until he was able to get past that same nightmare that his father had. Right.
Whoa.
And there's a couple of things like that with me, like particularly with relationships. You know, there was a point in time where my dad's experiences with relationships before he met my mom were things that I also experienced, right? Like, you know, my dad had a son when he was 15 years old, and my brother died when I was 12, but I was raised as an only child. And so he had a completely, like, I came out of the right parent at the right time, and my brother came out at the wrong time. And so the experience around that and the circumstances around that, you know, from like really had an impact on my father. And maybe subtly, I would never say directly, but I think subtly, a lot of the things that he expressed around that, or a lot of the things that he was unable to express around that, were things that I inherited haphazardly. And I had to go through a lot of things in order to begin to have healthier relationships with women, or to look at women in a healthier light. And it's really interesting to hear you describe that. Like, sometimes it's not always things like, you know, alcohol. It's not always things that you necessarily see every day, you know, but there are certain things that just kind of follow through our lineage, and we have to confront them at some point in time. Yeah.
No, I mean, I watched my mother in particular. I watched her chase love. I mean, you know, to this day, you know, it's been a heavy burden, you know, and I definitely inherited that. I don't have any other memory. I remember even being 3 years old thinking about love, and falling in love in kindergarten. And, it sounds crazy. Like, I don't think that's normal. I've had conversations with friends where they're like, you were thinking about boys at that age? And I'm like, girl, yes. Like, insanely too, like obsessively, and they tell me, I didn't think about boys till maybe high school. And I'm like, girl, like, I only went to school to look at boys, and the fact of the matter is I never experienced anything mutual. So to this day, I've either loved someone and they didn't love me back, or they loved me and I didn't love them back. And it was always like that up until late last year. I felt like I experienced something that was mutual for the first time in my life. And it was short-lived. It was only about a month long. And when that was hard for me, because for the first time I actually let my guard down. Because all these other years, I always had my guard up because I knew I loved them more, right? So it was like I wouldn't fully allow myself to feel things because I knew the time was coming where they'd be gone, or, but this time.
Why was it short-lived?
There was a fight that had happened that just we didn't recover from. And it was never addressed. And to me, that's a sign that maybe someone just doesn't care to address it. So I see red flags and I turn the other way. I'm not somebody that wants to prove myself wrong the way that I've always done, so I chose not to repeat the same patterns, and I just never spoke to them again. And after that, it was like a flip had switched, because I don't know how to explain it, but it's not that I feel empty. It's just I accepted it, and I finally was like, you've always been alone. I don't understand what you're missing. You've never had it to begin with. And I think that during this lifetime, God wanted me to overcome everything that all the people that came before me couldn't overcome, and that's self-love. And I'm really getting to that point because I'm like, damn, God, it's kind of crazy. You made me an only child, so I experienced a lot of loneliness from that. I never experienced that romantic love that I always desired. So you made me go through all these heartbreaks to finally get to a point where I don't even feel anything when I meet people anymore. Like before it would sometimes just be like a physical thing, like, oh my God, he's so fine, right? And I'd develop something, right? But I'm just not like that anymore, like it takes a lot for me to develop anything, and now I know that friendship is the best foundation. Sometimes even then, it still isn't enough. But at least I know now that no one's adding value into my life. Like, I'm valuable and whole on my own with God, and my job this time around was to develop that relationship with myself and with God. Because if I analyze the patterns that happened before, whenever I developed feelings for someone, they would now take priority in my life. And I needed to learn discipline. I needed to learn to always put me first, you know? So that's where I'm at now. Like, I'm in a relationship with God and with music and with my hobbies, and that's all I think about. I don't allow my mind to take me elsewhere. Even like nighttime, I used to stay up thinking about things. I just go to sleep now.
1 second applause. Sleep.
Go the fuck to sleep.
I feel you on that. I feel you on that. It's interesting hearing your journey from, you know, being a creative child to where you are now, and also being able to connect it to a lot of things that I'm not sure how specific you are about some of these things in the music, but I can definitely tell that there's the experiences that you've had have been pivotal to the light and the direction and the energy that comes through when I listen to the album. I mean, the last song of the album is called Brilliant.
Brilliant.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I feel like that's such an apt close to it. Like we might be talking about weighty topics in this conversation, but it doesn't necessarily feel like an overbearing listen. And I think that's a thin slice for an artist to be able to land on.
Thank you.
Over boom bap beats. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I mean. That's one of the things I really appreciated about this project.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, dope.
I feel so appreciated right now.
Yeah, it comes through. I mean, I do want to talk about this song "Enemies" with Coyote. Yes. Coyote is one of my favorite new acts, and I don't even know how they would look at themselves as being new or not. But the impact that they've had in 2025 has been significant, and they're going to be one of these groups that are going to be continue to carry the baton forward, the trophy forward when it comes to what's happening in LA, along with yourself. And so when I saw that collaboration, I was like, oh, this makes all the sense in the world.
I mean, I think they're so fly, and they're just...
as you are too, right? Because they're also visual artists. They've been here. Zoe's met Coyote.
Yeah.
They had, I think Guapo's son? One of them had their son running around in the background. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Probably Guapo. I've seen his son all around.
Right. So... that's another reason, I mean to cut you off, but like, I just felt like that made all the sense in the world there.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I think they're a great representation of Latino rap too, you know, so I'm really proud of them. What's funny to me is they were one of the first rappers that I met in this shit. Because like I told you, I made one song and then I was off to meet Sway. And, you know, when I came back, so I know Game from my Staples Center days. I used to do security at Staples Center for like 4 years. And, you know, I met him there, and we had lost contact for like a few years. I don't even know how long it had been. And when I dropped my song, a mutual friend of ours sent it to him, and he was like, "Oh, tell her to swing by." Mm-hmm. So I show up to a game session, and mind you, I've been a hairstylist for a long time by now. I've only been a hairstylist. I have no idea what's going on in the rap world because I've been stuck in the 90s. So I'm not aware of new music, new artists. I don't know who nobody is, you know. So when I show up to the session, I meet Whack 100. I have no idea who he is, right? So we get to talking, and he tells me he has these artists named Coyote and Cypress Moreno that he's going to do a podcast with, and he thinks that I should show up to do this podcast. And of course, I never told him, "Oh, I'm new at this shit." I just showed him my page, and he saw a few videos and was like, "Oh, you're dope." Yeah, you know, like they have no idea I'm fucking brand new out here, you know?
I got one song. I'm in the studio with Game off one song.
I mean, yeah. And like literally just like, I was just chilling there. I wasn't part of any process. I'm just chilling, you know? And he was like, you know, you should pull up. So I ended up pulling up that week, and the Yotes were there and Cypress was there, and I meet them, and they were literally the first like rappers that I had met in the scene, you know. I had already known Merkham's, but it was like online, you know, and we had developed that relationship because he had also just been on overtime the same week that I was. So that's how we knew each other, right? But as far as in LA and face to face, it was the Yotes, you know. So to me, it was really important to have them on my album because of what they represent. Like I love what they talk about. Again, they're super fly. I think they're one of the flyest in the game, because I think style is really important, and they just nail it with the color schemes and like I every time I see them, I'm like, what the fuck are you wearing? Let me see. Right. You know, like I mean, I'll even dress like that too, you know, but yeah, like I was really excited when they said that they were down, and when I got my verses, because again, I'm in my head a lot where it's like, am I gonna get my shit or not?
Right.
So when I received the verses, I felt a sense of relief.
Yeah, they're hardworking guys. You know, you mentioned that you worked at Marathon Burger when it was Luis's before Johnny Rockets.
Luis's, yeah.
They cut my hair. Well, I get my hair cut at their shop. You know, shout out to Franklin and Amani. Mm-hmm. But on Yodelandia, I mean, you talked about the things that they talk about there in music, and then the way that they were talking about, you know, what's been happening with deportations. You know, they're one of the few groups right now that are really willing to speak up about controversial topics. You know what I mean? Do you have any thoughts on that? Like when ICE came to LA and
absolutely, get the fuck out of here. You know, like I don't agree with any of that stuff, and I've been very vocal myself about how I feel. You know, I even made a song with Westmont Scheme. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but we made a song called Latino where we talk about it, you know, and it was something that was really hard for me to watch. I hate to see people in pain, you know, especially good people. You know, when we see who they're kicking out, they're talking about criminals, but I don't see criminals being taken out. You know, I see my folks, the people that I grew up with, you know, that I know to be hardworking and just humble people. And, you know, just being Latina myself, like it's hard to watch because I'm so familiar, you know, and it hurts. And I wish I was Wonder Woman and I could come up in here and really do some damage, because trust me, I would. Like I'm very peaceful, but I'm also all about that violent life. Like I know, like I would rip some heads off. I swear to God, if I could, I would. You know, because I'm all about justice, and I would love to see justice for us. You know, I think that for generations we've been dealing with this. This is nothing new. I think that they've always tried to take us out in one way or another. So this is just unfinished business for them per usual, you know, so.
Yeah, it came to mind in the beginning of the conversation too, when you said your mom's from El Salvador.
Yeah, my mom's Salvadorian and my dad's Mexican. Yeah. So I'm actually really proud of that because I get to have both. I don't know if you know, but there's this like ongoing beef between them.
I had no idea.
Yeah, like they're like, LA is like predominantly Mexican. Like when you talk about like Latino culture, like a lot of people are Mexican, you know. But I also get to say I'm Salvadorian, which I get to tap into that as well. You know, like I'm not just Mexican, you know. So I'm very proud to be able to claim both. And to be claimed by them as well. So you know? Where's
the friction come from?
I don't know, but I've always kind of heard about it, you know. Growing up, actually, I had a lot of Central American friends. It wasn't like I was choosing them. It just happened that way. I had a lot of Guatemalan friends, a lot of Honduran friends. And then by the time I got to high school, that's when I kind of started having some more Mexican friends, and I would just kind of hear things, you know, and I'm like, there's definitely some friction going on here, you know? But I'm happy to be able to be some type of bridge between there, you know, because it's like, either side can claim me. Yeah. So I really love that.
1 second applause. That's what's up. Yeah. You know, I was really looking forward to this conversation for a while. I've been a fan of your work ethic and a fan of your poetry and a fan of your vision for a while. And now I'm happy to say I get to be a fan of your album.
Thank you.
I've been hearing about this for a while, watching you piece it together. We have a lot of people in common. A lot of people that have been here, sitting right here on this couch have also played a hand in what you've created, and I just think it's really fantastic. Is there anything that you want people to know or you want to say? that we didn't get a chance to cover?
Let me see. Some that I want people to know. Oh, well, I am working on portraits. I'm like I told you earlier, I am also an artist, and I'm doing portraits for all of my features. You know, so at some point I would like to have an art gallery, you know, where I can have an event and I can, you know, showcase the art and play my album, maybe have some vinyls, maybe some CDs, maybe some merch, you know. So that'll be coming soon, you know. As far as anything else, I don't know. I can't think of anything right now.
Word up.
Yeah.
Well, LA baby Dazy Lyn, 9-second applause.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been great.
It's all happening.
Yeah, it's happening right now.
Justin Hunte is here, it's all happening. Justin Hunte is here, it's all happening. The mathematical breakdown of this mighty game of rap we in. It's boom happening. Systematical culture views that's radical, it's all happening. Shaking hands and dabbing it. Life through the lens of hip hop, from trip hop to yes, dog. You don't stop, you don't stop. Justin Hunte is here, it's all happening. It's all happening, yes, it's all happening. Justin Hunte is here, it's all happening. It's all happening, yes, it's all happening.